now that we've talked about collecting the data, we now have to import and then review the data. So let's dive a little bit deeper here. So now we're going to talk about importing and analyzing and a few of those best practices. When importing, you'll want to process and normalize the data. You will want to build search syntaxes. And we have an entire accelerator course. It's called Analytics Through Searching that we'll be going through. And it's completely dedicated to the intricacies of building out searches to help you identify the data that you're looking for. These are the search syntaxes that are one of the ways that you're going to be able to help evaluate, reduce the amount of data that you have or that you're going to be looking at and reviewing. All the while you are organizing, tagging your data and planning for your review. What I really want to focus on here is going to be some more vocabulary as it pertains to importing this time. So first we have file processing. When we keep saying importing, what it actually means when a document is importing or that it's imported, it means that it's ingesting the data. It then tries to extract all of the text within the data, as well as that metadata that we spoke about, and then it normalizes the data. So we're scanning the email, we're pulling out as much information as possible, and then our software makes it look as pretty as possible so that the attorneys can just jump in and start reviewing. Part of that import process is called Dnist. This generally in our next point is Dnist detection, but essentially it's a fancy way of saying something that's not considered important by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, which is what NIST stands for. So when you import and Dnist, things that are on that list that are considered to be not important are going to be removed. Speaking of removing things, we've already talked about deduplication, but it is the process of comparing the characteristics of electronic documents to identify and or remove duplicate records. This is that example I spoke about earlier of how you can have that same email from multiple different custodians that you've collected from. You don't want to have to review that same email 5 times, even though it was collected from 5 different custodians. And then maybe looking at those 5 replies and so on and so forth. Deduplication helps get rid of those unnecessary copies so that you don't waste your time going over the same material and saves your client countless billable hours as well. Document imaging is making a picture copy of a document. These pictures are often represented in TIFF, JPEG, and PDF formats. These pictures are what you're first going to see visually in the app when doing your document review. It's pretty, it's what the document should look like, what we're accustomed to seeing it look like. If they had any pretty fonts or anything like that, formatting wise, it's going to show up that way. But the document is being, while it's being imaged, it's also being OCR'd. So what OCR stands for is optical character recognition, which is the process of converting images of printed pages into that electronic text. And this is what will allow you to actually search for certain words or key terms within those pictures and documents. And then last but not least is a term that I've been using throughout this presentation without really telling you what it means. I'm hoping from context, we've all inferred the definition that you see here. The practice of narrowing a larger data set to a smaller one for the purposes of review based on objective criteria. Really, it's just taking that large amount of data and culling it down to what's actually relevant to our case. And I know you're not supposed to use the word when defining the word, but culling has become one of my favorite words to use since joining NextPoint.